Well, this is the last of Mahler's completed symphonies. He did set about a 10th symphony, and he more or less completed one movement, and there was short score for a little bit more, and various hands have tried finishing the 10th symphony, but it very effectively too. But the last symphony that Mahler completed was the Ninth Symphony, and he wrote it mostly at a little hut in the north of Italy, what was then southern Austria, a place called, the Austrians called Toblach, and the Italians called Dobaccio. And I actually went there once on route between Vienna and Zagreb. We stopped off, and I saw the house where Mahler used to live and walked the 200 meters or so to the hut, which really was no more than a glorified garden shed, but it had the most exquisite view of the valley down to the local town, and one could imagine Mahler there working at this piece. At that particular time, he had left the Vienna State Opera. He had been general director, so he'd been supreme arbiter of all matters of taste and matters of repertoire, choices of personnel hirings, all those kinds of things. And with all that power, he had created the first great opera house ensemble of the 20th century. He had been responsible for a number of prominent commissions, although he'd never written an opera himself. But when the time came for him to leave, around 1908, 1907, there was a good deal of bad feeling because he was more or less forced out. There was a good deal of anti-Semitism in the decision, and I think Mahler, had decided then that he would take up other opportunities, and at that moment the New York Philharmonic came calling. He and his wife Alma sailed to New York, and just before they did so, his daughter passed away, and this was one of his two daughters passed away, and this was a very traumatic moment for Mahler. In New York, he threw himself into the work, and he more or less orchestrated the Ninth Symphony in its entirety. The routine simply was to compose the basic body of the work in piano score, in short score, in the summers, in the hut, and there's a little piano in the hut. And then in the winter, he would orchestrate. So he would get up very early in the morning and orchestrate before he came to rehearsal, something that anybody else who's a conductor and composer knows something about. And it's very tiring. For Mahler, it must have been unbelievable because his works are very long, very complex, and very immaculately but fussily orchestrated. So that was Mahler's life at the time. That was more or less how the final symphony, the Ninth, came to be written. But of course it was also the fact that it was the Ninth, and the precedents were Bruckner and Beethoven in particular, and Mahler saw himself as following that lineage, and had tried to cheat death in a way by calling Das Lied von der Erde, which was really the Ninth Symphony, just a symphonic work for tenor and baritone. So it's a very it's a colourful background, but of course Mahler finished the piece, travelled back to Europe very sick, very unwell, and never heard it played. It was not played until after he died, and it was conducted by Bruno Walter with the Vienna Philharmonic, who had so recently rejected Mahler. And out of that great sort of mess, that chaos of 2 or 3 years, the hut in Toblach, the conducting in New York, the stopping off in Paris looking for a cure, catching the train as an invalid from Paris so that he could end his life in Vienna. All of this, out of all this chaos came this exquisite masterpiece, this exquisite farewell.